Let me ask you this. What is it that you love about Minecraft? And yes, I know that's a pretty wide question, for which you have hundreds of things at your disposal to answer, but I'm willing to bet many of you, and yes, you, would answer building. And otherwise, you almost certainly proposed an answer of something that somebody had to build at one point. Something somebody had to come up with. Something a person, or at least a group of people, spent many hours building or even just imagining. Maybe you're a simple guy. Maybe you build for fun. Or perhaps you just care about PvP. But somebody has to make those shitty PvP arenas and cool background elements for you. Because Minecraft, obviously, is about building. It's a game, or sometimes even a tool, to build infinite, seamless possibilities. Technology every day keeps advancing, further and further. And we've gotten to a point where AIs like ChatGPT, Grok, or even Google's Gemini are all that's talked about. And they are virtually everywhere. You can have any opinion you want on them. To me, there's something unavoidable which is and will keep getting out of control. But they're especially hurtful for artists. And there are many kinds of people who can fall into the category of artists. Because yes, the guy who built that shitty PvP arena I was talking about, regardless of its quality, made an art piece. Something a human, a real person, made, handcrafted, with either a love, care, or at the very least, skill. But that's changing. Because AI is coming to Minecraft, with a giant project that was, like I said, unavoidable. But that will probably hurt the game's purpose and leave a permanent scar. Which we will not only talk about, but we'll also test the AI and see how it actually fares while trying to replicate real buildings. Let's go all the way back, because actually this topic is not entirely new. In fact, it's been creaking up on you for years. Because something that's always existed and mostly flown under the radar for the large community, like for example, probably you, were the 3D to schematics tools. Let me explain. In case you're cold on 3D and how that sort of stuff works, there exists plenty of formats, okay? Some of the widely spread ones include OBJ, .day, or even FBX. OBJ by far the one with the most history and general use. And so, being on a computer, there have always been tools to convert 3D models to file formats that you can directly input into Minecraft. A few years ago, colorless. Although the latest tools have actually been able to completely color everything by themselves. This basically means that there have always, and I mean always, been tools to do something similar. It's just that they weren't really widespread. In fact, the earliest tool I have found relating to this topic is from 2011. Now mostly lost to time, like many of these tools, called OBJ2MC. One of these many tools that have existed for years and have been replaced countless times. And there really is nothing wrong with this, you know? It can help up speeding up some things, and it was never too accurate anyways. You'd usually need to know a lot about building anyways to make something look decent. But here's the kicker. These tools have been getting larger, especially as the 2020s rolled over. And not just tools like these. Tools for pixel arts have also been making the rounds online for similar conversion features for years. And in fact, you've probably seen more than one of these in action. In these sorts of videos pretending they've built some massive, overcomplicatedly colored pixel art. That's because they're made with tools like this. The reason you probably don't know about most of these tools is because most YouTubers don't know the technical side. Builders don't even want to admit how common that gets used, and servers have used it quietly for years. The same way a giant building like this is made. And don't you dare think this was some obscure thing just because you didn't hear about it, because the biggest builders always did it. Or did you think that giant Pokemon statue in this Pixelmon server was handcrafted? The thing that I want to propose to you is that this doesn't fully violate creativity. It's always been there, it's always been a thing, and it's more of a matter of responsibility. Nothing in Minecraft is truly made 100% by hand, and this can just help form the base of a building, for example. And sure, it does also provide a way for non-skilled people to try and post ginormous builds on Reddit to gain stupid internet points. Yeah, that happens. But it doesn't usually go much further. It's basically that with great power comes great responsibility. But not anymore. Because this dumpster fires just got an update, and it's actually getting worse. Because a new tool by developer Cynthia AI, which I have nothing against, called BuilderGPT, lets you generate any structure in Minecraft just by describing it using a language model, in this case ChatGPT, to produce a .schematic file. Do you understand what this means for the entire game? Not only could you already create the shittiest fake structures ever using 3D models that were, at the end of the day, typically traceable and mostly noticeable, but now a hyper-realistic algorithm exists to create unique, original, and artificial buildings with the combination of a few key presses. And for the purposes of this video, I tested the language model and tried to push it to its limits. It's in a really early stage, but it's still quite surprisingly decent. I'd compare it to the average building skill of a little child, a toddler, just that it has a few robot-ish mistakes, you know? You'll see what I'm talking about. I started by telling ChatGPT to describe this gigantic town I've built, which you may have seen pop up in one or two of my videos, and then sent that hyper-detailed description back to the AI model which would produce the schematic. The result? Whatever this is, it looks much worse from a distance, okay? It actually is following the prompt pretty well. There's a few boats on the coast, ice, water below the ice, all of that checkmark stuff is pretty much there. It's just that it failed with the entire layer debacle and it didn't really land any shape. It did land the color of the roofs, the trees are actually pretty good, although not persistent, and the general idea is there, it's just that it didn't quite follow through. To test if it'd give me any different results, I also prompted it with the same thing twice, and it gave me basically the same structure, just with a few differences, mostly in the trees. But yeah, it didn't really do that bad for being one of the first versions. Seeing how minuscule it tried to recreate my giant vessel ships, I also followed by asking this, a hyper-detailed giant ship, for which it gave me what you're looking at. I think you can start to see a pattern. It struggles with anything with interiors as it seems to create multiple layers and end up not knowing how to connect them. But again, it's a start, you know. If you showed me this without knowing BuilderGPT is even a thing, I just think it's the bizarre work of some kid with commands. And finally, to conclude my tests, I told it to make a cat. Just that, a cat. I prompted it to make the best cat it could, and this is what came out. And before you say anything, it really is not that bad. In fact, I'd say it's surprisingly good and by far the best thing it made. It actually kind of looks like a kid made it. The biggest problem with it is that it tried to use blocks like slabs, which it has no idea on how to properly connect and place. And also that it entirely missed the head. I don't know how it skips over details like that, but then puts candles inside the cat. I might just have to check on mine just in case that's real. But yeah, I tried fixing up the structure, and look, for the really small cleanup that I made, it looks pretty good. Obviously, not yet a competitor to any sort of decent builder, but it's still a giant step up for this. It even nailed the color spot and where the bell was, although it missed some blocks. And I repeat, I'm not spreading hate, I admire the developer behind this, you know. My opinion with AI is that it mostly sucks. It's a really useful thing that in the wrong hands can create a ton of issues, kill a lot of art forms and a lot of brains. But at the same time, I don't really blame the people who work on this, because at the end of the day, someone's going to do this. And if it's not a regulated, decently compassed company, it could be anyone. Hell, it's now that smaller models with less restrictions and moral convictions like ChatGPT are starting to emerge. So, despite everything, this is a tool that was bound to exist at one point, as soon as language models like these became so widely spread. But listen, after everything I just told you, do you know what this means for a game like Minecraft? A game about pushing creativity and boundaries to their limit? Well, all of that will be gone, and there will be no way around it. There will be people who use it and they will never be stopped. These tools not only can create a few examples like I told them to, no, they can actually set biomes now, set custom block states, add symmetry, like with the cat. The cat was actually pretty symmetrical. It can also attempt to create interiors, complex layers, mini blocks, differentiate colors, and much more. All of which is slowly building up to become an issue. Because who will care about your man-made, hours well spent build when a tool so simplified will be so easily accessible for everyone? It's not just faking a social media post, it's not providing a shitty statue for a server lobby that you still had to at least color. No, it's much far surpassed that. Hell, with the use of ChatGPT's actual AI model, you can even build data packs with these structures now, or plugins. You can actually form entire data packs with shitty machine-made code and machine-made structures now. And it's not a question of will AI builds take over Minecraft anymore. It's more of a when will they take over Minecraft. And this is especially saddening to me, more than ever, since incredible tools like Axiom, which I have quite a few shorts on, have a lot of potential and can be used for something really great. What makes me the most fearful is losing the ability to actually reckon what's real and what's not. You could seriously tell when something was made with a 3D model if you had enough experience, and typically, with a small Google search, even find the model itself. But not this time. In fact, this makes original creations. You won't even be able to distinguish this at one point. AI models will keep advancing and will keep going forward with this, and the only thing you, me, or anyone can do is not use it. But that means nothing. Your little grain of salt of a contribution will never be of use when this keeps going forward, because there will always be people in favor of this, and especially against creativity. So listen, if you truly love building, just keep building. Keep making things only you would make. Things that don't come from a prompt, a preset, or a generate button. That's the only way Minecraft stays Minecraft. And for now, let's just pretend this whole AI building apocalypse isn't fully here yet. And let's just enjoy the little time left we still have before the lines blur completely. Do you actually think this is the start of the end for Minecraft building as we know it today? Or do you perhaps see a brighter outcome out of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down below, because I typically read all comments anyways. So, peace, Big Squeak.